Tom, you in? Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday night shir. I'd like to begin this week discussing the topic of Hilchos Kiddush, Kiddush of Shabbos, and perhaps Kiddush of Yontif, which is a mitzvah that we do every single week, and we've been doing. Most of us probably been doing all of our lives, and have done it many, many times. And we're familiar with the basics of Kiddush, but there are very, very many halachas that are involved in Hilchos Kiddush, and there's quite a bit to discuss, quite a bit of discussion in the poskim, and a lot of lamdasha inyanim, and a lot of halachas which are negei l'maisa beyond the weekly routine. So I hope that Bez Hashem will have an opportunity to cover some of those things to begin tonight, and probably Bez Hashem continue into the upcoming weeks. So to begin with the mitzvah of Kiddush, the Rambam writes in the in Hilchos Shabbos, Parachav Tes from Hilchos Shabbos, Halacha Aleph, the Rambam writes, Mitzvahs asay min haTorah, lekadesh es yom Shabbos bidvarim. There's a mitzvah d'oraisa, a mitzvah min haTorah to be mekadesh Shabbos bidvarim, meaning to articulate some form of Kedusha Shabbos, which is learned from the pasuk which says Zachas Yom Shabbos Lekasho, a pasuk in the Seres Hadiros. Zachas Yom Shabbos Lekasho, that you should mention. Zachar means to mention Shabbos in a way. Koloma, the Rambam says Koloma Zachrehu Zechira Shavach V'Kiddush. Mention Shabbos in a way that it gives honor and praise and dignity to Shabbos. So that's a mitzvah min haTorah. Later, the Rambam mentions in Halacha Zayin, Midivrei Sofrim Lekadesh al Hayayin. The idea that we make the formal Kiddush that we make, which is over a cup of wine, that is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. Meaning, the Rabbanan were mosif that when one goes ahead and fulfills this mitzvah d'Oraisa of Kiddush, of being Zachas Yom HaShabbos Lekadsho on Shabbos, they should do so over a cup of wine. And that goes, Maimon is also, if you take a look there on the page of the Rambam, Ozayin also writes, V'chein Pirish Ri, the Kiddush Midoraisa, the main mitzvah, the Iker mitzvah of Kiddush Midoraisa, Aval Mashit Tzrichu L'Omer L'Yayin, Einu Ela Midorabanan. Now, based on this, so the Magen Avraham says that if the mitzvah D'Oraisa of Kiddush is fulfilled by words, simply by articulating a form of praise of Shabbos, so when one davens Maariv Friday night, when davens the Friday night Shemona Esrei, in where he mentions Ataki Dashdesh Yom Shvi L'Shmecha, he mentions the idea of Kedusha Shabbos right there in the davening. So says the Magen Avraham, he's Yotzei the mitzvah d'Oraisa. The mitzvah d'Oraisa of Kiddush has already been fulfilled before you even got home. Before you came home to your table, which is set up and has your becher and the wine, before you even get there, you've already fulfilled the mitzvah d'Oraisa. At least anyone who is daven Maariv has fulfilled the mitzvah d'Oraisa right there and then. And now what he has left to do is the mitzvah d'Rabbanan of reciting Kiddush on wine. Now there's no question that although you fulfilled the d'Oraisa, you still are entitled and indeed obligated to recite the formal Kiddush, the nusach that Chazal were masakin, the Chazal created, the nusach of the bracha of Kiddush. You still can do it and still must do it, even though you Yotzi Kiddush d'Oraisa, but the Rabbanan required that it be done over Kosayin, and they gave us a specific nusach bracha, and that you have to do. However, the fact that you're a Yotzei, according to the Magen Avraham, that you're Yotzei, the mitzvah d'Oraisa already, has a number of nafkaminas. La Halacha. For example, the Mishnah Berurah writes in the name of the Pri Megadim, in Siman Reish Ayin Aleph, let's say a person is mesupik, whether or not he recited Kiddush. He can't remember if he recited Kiddush al Hayayin, or he's mesupik for one reason or another if he was Yotzei. Perhaps he recited Kiddush, but he has some serious shayla halacha whether or not he was Yotzei, the mitzvah of Kiddush al Hayayin. So according to this, he would not repeat Kiddush. Once he davened Maariv already, had he not davened Maariv for whatever reason, and he sat down and made Kiddush, and he has a suffix now if he's Yotzei, or he's not sure if he sat down and made Kiddush, he knows he didn't daven Maariv, and he's not sure if he recited Kiddush or not, then he could still sit down and say Kiddush al Hayayin with the kos and say the bracha, because he knows for sure Not for sure. His suffix is even on the deraisa level. He doesn't even know if he was miyotzi the mitzvah deraisa yet. So if he doesn't know if he's yotzi the deraisa, so he, just like the person who knows he wasn't yotzi the deraisa, makes kiddush, even though. Or just I said before, even the person who knows he was yotzi the deraisa, but he has a mitzvah. If he knows for sure he didn't do the derabanan yet, he goes in and does it with the bracha. So here, the person who doesn't know is not sure if he was yotzi kiddush at all. He knows he didn't daven marav, but he doesn't know. Or you can even put that into the suffix. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know if he daven marav. He doesn't know if he made kiddush. So he's a suffix deraisa. So he can sit down and make kiddush al hayayin. That's one nafkamina. And another nafkamina would be that once a person daven marav already, so now he could be yotzei kiddush even if he hears it from a katan. Shegiya l'chinuch. We know that you could be yotzei kiddush al hayayin, by hearing it from somebody else. If somebody else recites kiddush and has a mind to be motzi you, has a mind that with his recitation you're fulfilling your mitzvah. So we know that works. But normally, it would only work if it's a person who's also chayiv in the mitzvah and chayiv on the same level that you're chayiv. So when you have a mitzvah deraisa to fulfill, if you have a mitzvah deraisa, then a katan cannot be motzi you. For just give an example that we know that when it comes to Parsha Zachar, Leni Parsha Zachar, which according to a number of Rishonim is a mitzvah deraisa. It's a way of fulfilling the mitzvah of Zachar is asher salacha amalek. So we know that you can't have a katan lane that parsha. Now we never have a katan. A person known to be a katan will never lane any parsha. But the nafkamina is by a bar mitzvah boy, as we'll soon see why that's a nafkamina. So anytime you have a mitzvah deraisa to fulfill, a katan who's even though he's a gil chinuch, but he's only chayiv midrabanan. Gil chinuch is machayiv midrabanan. So you can't be yotzi your mitzvah through a katan. So if kiddush would be deraisa, so for example, if you did not daven marav and you're sitting down to kiddush now, a katan, even if he's a gil chinuch, cannot be motzi you because he's only chayiv midrabanan and you're chayiv midraisa. So even though there's a din of shomea kaona, which says that when somebody else does the mitzvah and he has me in mind, and I have in mind to be yotzei, but it's not going to work if he's a katan because his chiyuv is not on my level. However, says the Mishnah Berurah, according to this Magen Avraham, if I did daven marav already, I was already yotzei my mitzvah deraisa. So now when I come home and I'm chayiv in kiddush, I'm also only chayiv midirabanan. So I'm chayiv midirabanan, and he's chayiv midirabanan. So it works. The katan can be motzi me with kiddush. A katan shegiya lechinuch can be motzi me with kiddush, according to the Magen Avraham, provided I've already davened marav. So these would be two nafkaminas. However, the very premise of the Magen Avraham that one is yotzei kiddush d'oraisa by davening, the Mishnah Berurah strongly questions. He has two main tainas on this shita of the Magen Avraham. Number one, we paskin mitzvahs trichas kavana. A person has to be mechavin to be yosei a mitzvah. When he does the ma'aseh mitzvah, he has to have kavanah to fulfill the mitzvah. So says the Mishnah Berurah, I don't believe that people when they're davening marav are having kavanah to be yosei the mitzvah of kiddush of Zachar Yom Shabbos L'Kadshah. They're davening marav. They're davening marav because they have the mitzvah to daven marav, but they're not intending to fulfill the mitzvah of kiddush. That's number one. And number two, says the Mishnah Berurah, a requirement within Kiddush is to mention Zecher Yitzias Mitzrayim. Yitzias Mitzrayim has to be mentioned as a part of the Kiddush. And the Mishnah Berurah maintains there's a Bir Halacha at the beginning of Siman Reish Ayin Aleph, who maintains that's a chiyuv d'oraisa. That's not simply a din d'rabbanan. That part of the nusach of Kiddush Chazal created was Zecher Yitzias Mitzrayim. They wanted you to say, or they even required you to say Yitzias Mitzrayim in Kiddush midrabbanan. No, the Mishnah Berurah maintains that it's really a chiyuv d'oraisa to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim. So he says in the davening, in the Friday night davening in Ishmael Esrei, there's no mention of Yitzias Mitzrayim.
Does it have to be in the same breath, or can the Kriya Shema, Yetzias Mitzrayim count?
Okay, so good question. The Bir Halacha discusses that whether, well, we do mention Yetzias Mitzrayim earlier in davening, in Kriya Shema and in the brachas after. So he discusses that, but the Bir Halacha is of the opinion that that would not be good enough for the mitzvah of Zichron and Kiddush. He discusses this in detail in the Bir Halacha there, and at least that's his understanding. His they call it his primary understanding, and therefore he is very misupik about this Magen Avraham, whether it's indeed true that a person is Yosei the mitzvah deraisa by with davening. And of course, if he's not, so then the two nafkaminas would reverse. If you have a suffix, if you make kiddush, not you still have to make kiddush, and a katan could not be motzi. Now he does try to be miyashev the Magen Avraham. If you look at this Bir Halacha, it's a somewhat lengthy Bir Halacha at the beginning of Siman Reish Ayin Aleph, and he discusses primarily to try to be miyashev the Magen Avraham from the question of Zichron Yetzias Mitzrayim. First, he says maybe the Magen Avraham holds it is only a chiyuv d'Rabbanan. Maybe he disagrees. Disagrees with my premise, and my raya is, the Bir Halacha's raya is that it's the raisa. Maybe the Magen Avraham holds otherwise. It's only d'Rabbanan, and Mamela is still yotzi the din d'Raisa even without it. And or he says perhaps maybe mentioning Zichron Mitzrayim earlier is good enough. He has a couple of suggestions, a couple of ways to be miyashiv the Magen Avraham. So he leaves it as a tzarichin. Tzarichin, if this Magen Avraham is correct, lahalacha or not. Now, in terms of his first kasha, that where's the kavanah? And by the way, the kasha the Mishnah Berurah then says is not only his kasha, but he found the kasha in the Sefer Tosfos Shabbos, which is one of the achronim that he quotes very often in Hilchos Shabbos. He also asked the kasha, and by the way, the other kasha of where that it's lacking Zichron Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Minchas Chinuch asked that kasha. So as far as the first kasha is concerned, so first of all, I'll mention that the Chassam Sofer in the Tshuva in Orach Chaim Simon Chaf Aleph, the Chassam Sofer says that when a person davids ma'ariv, it's ki'ilu he's mechaven behedyin not to be yotzei, because it's better to be yotzei the mitzvah over a kos yayin b'makam suda. It's better to be mekayim, but that way, the way Chazal instituted or embellished the mitzvah. The Mishnah also mentions that idea that it's better to be yotzei at home, and that's part of his kasha that mehechi teisi. Who says a person is mechaven to be yotzei? It's even better not to. The Chassam Sofer goes so far as to say it's ki'ilu that a person is mechaven mamish not to be yotzei in order to be yotzei at home. So he's mechaven not to be yotzei. But many seem to disagree with that. And they sometimes say even like how could that be? I mean, if Chazal Mesake, if it could be that if it is so that you're Yotzei with Kiddush, Yotzei with davening, Yotzei Kiddush, as the Magen Avraham maintains, so how could it be that you have to have kavanah not to be Yotzei? Chazal set it up that way. They knew what they were doing. They set up a davening which includes Kiddush, and they're requiring you that you have to be mechaber not to be Yotzei. And some question whether you can even split it. But more than that, I saw the Sefer Hilchos Shabbos b'Shabbos from Rav Mordechai Garb Shlita. He says he doesn't understand, he doesn't really appreciate b'chlal the Mishnah Berurah's kasha. That where's the lack of kavanah? A person knows what he's doing. He knows that he's davening and he's being makari Shabbos. He knows that he's doing that. He's saying words of Sheva Chatav Kidash Yom Shvila Shmecha Tachlis. Bria Shemayim V'Aretz, I forget the exact lesson here, but you mentioned that Shabbos is the goal and the purpose of the whole creation of the world is for Shabbos, and you mentioned it directly. So what do you mean you're not mechaven? You're certainly mechaven to say what you're saying and to do that. And he says he found in the tshuva from a guy in Rabbi Yosef Mislotsk that he asked his kasha on the Tosfos Shabbos, who, as we mentioned, Tosfos Shabbos has the same as the Mishnah Berurah. So he asks us on the Tosfos Shabbos. He says, "Mikiven shemazker Shabbos b'tefila." V'omro mishum kedusha Shabbos, your davening is for kedusha Shabbos. So eilecha kavanah gedola mizu, and he al kapanim. So they don't understand this kasha. Like where is it felt? Where is it lacking in the kavanah? Al kapanim, the Mishnah Berurah, as I said, leaves it tzarichin, So whether or not to say like the Magen Avraham. So says the Mishnah Berurah, since it's a tzarachian, so avada, you shouldn't have a katan be motzi you. But what about a 13-year-old, a bar mitzvah boy, or a 14-year-old? And before I go into the detail, I want to mention that this is particularly nogeya when the balabas is away from home for Shabbos. He went out of town for a family simcha, whatever it is, and his wife is at home with the children, and they have a bar mitzvah boy at home, or maybe they said a 14-year-old, maybe a 15-year-old. They have a young teenager at home, and the tendency might be that he should make kiddush. The mother or the wife is not used to making kiddush, and it's not her role. The son is on his way to becoming a future balabas, and so for him it's a natural thing perhaps to be mechaber him with kiddush. So, but it's not so pashut that a bar mitzvah boy can be motzi with kiddush either, because the din is, in order for a person to be considered a gadol, that he's chayiv mitzvahs min haTorah, there are two requirements. They are shanim and simanim. Shanim means he has to be 13 Yud Gimel Shanim v'Yom Echad, which means he has to have reached his 13th birthday. So that's easy to know. But he also has to have simanim, which means he has to have shtei sairos, 2 pubic hairs. And that's something which typically we don't even check for nowadays, and even there's even some question as to know exactly what qualifies. So when a boy is 13, we don't know for sure that he qualifies for a bar mitzvah boy, that he has met the second condition. Now, so the question is saying, well, so then how do we have every bar mitzvah boy gets up there and lanes his bar mitzvah parasha, and he gets aliyahs, and he davens for the amud, and v'chulu v'chulu, he leads benching. How do all these things happen if we don't know if you don't know? And by the way, we don't know till when don't we know? So it says without being bodek for pubic hairs, for Cyrus Bosamakom, you don't know until he has a ribui seir al panav, when he has hair on his face, but not just shtei Cyrus, and he has to have a ribui of seir on his face, and then that's a simon already that he has shtei Cyrus Bosamakom. But that could take a number of years. It could be a number of years past his bar mitzvah. So how do we allow every bar mitzvah boy to lane and daven and lay benching, as I said, in the 14-year-old and 15-year-old? How do we allow him to do that? So there's a chazaka de Rava. There's a chazaka that says that when a boy reaches 13, there's a chazaka that says that he mistama, he likely, or he's muchzak that he has Cyrus. However, we're only somich on that chazakas v'dinim, that chazaka v'dinim d'Rabbanan, not v'dinim d'Oraisa. So, for example, Kriyas HaTorah is the Rabbanan. Kriyas HaTorah is the Rabbanan. Davening for an amud, the Rabbanan. Mezumin, according to the Mishnah Berurah, is the Rabbanan. So we allow a bar mitzvah boy to do all those things, but that's why, going back to Parsha Zachar, as I mentioned, in most kehilos will not allow a bar mitzvah boy, if his bar mitzvah is Parsha Zachar, they won't allow him to lay them after. He can lay the sedra, but he can't lay them after because that's a mitzvah deraisa according to many. So they won't allow him to lay that, or for that matter, give him the aliyah either. Well, so let me clarify. A woman's chayiv in Kiddush, I should have clarified this, is equal to that of a man. A woman's chayiv mitaraisa in Kiddush, right? So a woman's chayiv mitaraisa, because even though Kiddush is a mitzvah sasesha as man grama, it's a time-bound positive commandment which typically women are patur from, but since it's learned from the pasuk of Zachas Yom HaShabbos L'Kacho, and that pasuk is linked to the pasuk of Shamar Yom HaShabbos L'Kacho, because Shamar v'Zarcha b'Dibur Echad Nemru, they were said together. We find in the Sefer Dibros, one place says Zachar, one place says Shamar. There's the Kadosh Baruch Hu said them together in a way that no human being could do. But Kadosh Baruch Hu did it. He said them simultaneously. So in order to link them, and so whoever's chayiv in Shamar refers to the lo saseh of Shabbos, guard the Shabbos, observe Shabbos, don't do any malach on Shabbos. Whoever's chayiv in that, which includes women, because women are chayiv in all mitzvahs lo saseh, is automatically chayiv in the mitzvahs saseh of Shabbos as well. Kal sheyeshno b'shmira, yeshno b'schira. So women are chayiv, and this is before in Shulchan Aruch as well, right here in Reish Ayin Aleph Sif Beis. So women are chayiv in Kiddush D'Oraisa just as well as men. So the 13-year-old is a suffix. We don't know for sure. He might not be bar mitzvah. If he's not bar mitzvah, if he doesn't have shtei sairos, he's not bar mitzvah, and therefore, albeit that he's 13 plus, he's not bar mitzvah yet. So he's only chai midrabanan. So he can't be. So again, but I forget exactly where I'm up to, but so a katan, I mentioned before, a katan definitely should not be motzi the mother. But when it comes to a 13-year-old who there is a chazaka that says that he is a gadol, so that the Mishnah Berurah says you could be Yotze Kiddush with a 13-year-old, provided you daven mariv, or provided, let's say, the case of the woman. If the woman taka daven mariv, so then we said Lefi the Magen Avram, she was already Yotze Hadaraisa with that. So even though the Mishnah Berurah says I'm misupik about that, I'm not so sure that la halacha, the Magen Avram's halacha, is correct la halacha, but it's at least a suffix. So that's one suffix, and plus there's a suffix that the boy might be bar mitzvah, and he calls it a suffix. I mean, it's even a chazaka, but as I said, chazaka which rely on at least with the rabbanan. So at least on a deraisa level, it's at least a suffix. So he says you have a double suffix, so that's good enough. So it's good enough. So the 12-year-old cannot be motzi his mother, and the 12-year-old, even if he has a beard, can't be motzi his mother because he's only 12. He has not reached he hasn't fulfilled the condition of shanim. He's not of age. But the 13-year-old or 14-year-old, even if he has no facial hair, so we don't know for sure if he has shtei saros or not, since he may have shtei saros, as one suffix that he might be chayv midaraisa, and B, his mother, provided his mother daven mariv, or his father, for that matter, if he wants to be motzi's father, daven mariv. So there's also a suffix he might have been yossi the daraisa with that. So since you have the double suffix, the Mishnah Berurah says you could do that. So the 13-year-old can make kiddush at home provided his mother daven mariv. But if she didn't daven mariv, or it's not just his mother, he might have a teenage sister, or even a 12-year-old sister who's chayiv mitzvahs at 12, who's chayiv midoraisa, at least possibly midoraisa. So for him to be motzi them would only work if they davened mariv. That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. Okay, now along these same lines, or using some of the same yisodos, there's a very big shaila in the poskim, which could come up every single week, not just the week that the husband's out of town. The week that the husband is in town, and the husband daven mariv in shul, and he comes home, and let's say his wife did not daven mariv. So he was yotze ready midaraisa. He's only chayiv in kiddush midarabanan. His wife, who didn't daven mariv, is chayiv in kiddush midaraisa. And we said before that a person who to be from one person to be mostly someone else, they have to have chiyuvim on the same level. That's what we said. A katan who's only chayiv midrabanan in whatever mitzvah it is, cannot be motzi a gadol. So let's say a 12-year-old for sure can't be motzi a man, at least a man who didn't. Who didn't daven mariv yet. A man who's chayiv deraisa. The katan who's only chayiv midarabanan can't be motzi his father who didn't daven mariv, who's chayiv midaraisa. So the question is, so when a man daven mariv already, he was already yotzi midaraisa. Now he's also only chayiv midarabanan. So perhaps he shouldn't be able to be motzi his wife or anyone else in the house, his daughters, as he said, his daughters who are benos chiyuva who didn't daven mariv. They're chayiv midaraisa. He's only chayiv midarabanan. Now, but to really understand the stardom of the suffix, we have to explain another concept, and that is when you motzi people, there are two processes, or two halachic yisodos that are functioning. One is the idea of shomea ka'onet, which means if I'm doing a mitzvah right now for myself, so then I could be motzi other people. I'm making a bracha because I'm chayiv in that bracha. So if you're also chayiv in the bracha, you could be motzi with me as long as we both have in mind a birchas mitzvah or a birchas hanenin. If I'm going to eat an apple now, I'll make it by parades, and you want to eat something that's by parades, so I could be motzi you. I'm chayiv in the mitzvah, and you're chayiv in the mitzvah. So I could be motzi you with shomea ka'onet. But there's an additional concept. There's a halacha by kiddush, before halacha, that even if I was yotze kiddush already, even if I made kiddush, and I was Yotzei, I could still make Kiddush for you. And that's the first Shadin. Now, if you are capable of making Kiddush, it's best you make it for yourself. But if you're not capable, I can be motzi you. And even if you are capable, it still works. If you look at the Mishnah Berurah, Siman Reish Ayin Gimel, Sivka and Chaf, he brings from the Pri Chadash and the Eretz Tzachayim that you could be motzi a person with a Kiddush even if you were Yotzi already, even if he's capable of making Kiddush. So then you say, well, how does that work? We said before, you have to be Yotzi, you have to be Chayiv on the same level. I'm not Chayiv at all. I made Kiddush already. I'm not Chayiv. The Teretz says, what we meant when we said if you have to be on the same level, which means you have to have such a chiyuv, you have to be in that parsha, you have to be a bar chiyuv of that mitzvah. The fact that you fulfill the mitzvah already doesn't change it. As long as you're a bar chiyuv, meaning you are one who's chayiv in that particular mitzvah, the fact that you may have fulfilled the mitzvah doesn't prevent you from being motzi someone else. That's the concept that's called yatsa motzi, afal pisha yatsa motzi. Even though I was yotzi already, I can be motzi someone else. And the reason for that, because that works with the concept that we call arvus. Arvus means kol, refers to the idea that kol Yisrael areivin zebozeh, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us in a bris of arvus together, that each one of us is responsible for the next one. And for your, so I am responsible for your kiyum mitzvahs. Just as I'm responsible to make sure that I'm Mekayim mitzvahs, I'm responsible to make sure that the next year is also Mekayim mitzvahs to the extent that I'm able to see to it. And Michel, since I'm responsible, Michel, I could be motzi him with the mitzvah. Even if I was Yotzei already, I could be motzi him because it's like I was, I guess the way you could put it, I wasn't Yotzei his chiyuv. I was Yotzei my chiyuv, but I wasn't Yotzei his chiyuv. He still has a chiyuv, and I have a chiyuv to make sure that he does the mitzvah to the extent that I can. So I wasn't Yotzei his chiyuv yet. So Michel, I could be motzi him his chiyuv. Oh, so then you say, okay, so then what's the problem? So what's the problem with the husband who made Kiddush in Shul being Yotzi D'Oraisa? So what is Yotzi D'Oraisa? Why can't he be Motzi's wife? So the Dalgol Meravava, which, the Hagos of the Shulchan Aruch from the Nodeh Yehuda, brings a rush that says that women are not included in Arvus. Arvus, that's for men, but women aren't part of that. So he says, oh, we're not part of that. So if that means that a man is not Ari for a woman, is not responsible for a woman's mitzvah, then the concept of im yotza motzi shouldn't work. You should only be able to be motzi a woman if you're being yotzi yourself. If I'm being motzi myself right now, then just simple shomei akona. She listens to me as I'm saying it, she's yotzi. But if I want to be motzi her having been yotzi already, then I have to come on to this concept of arvus. And if I need this concept of arvus, so the Rush says that women aren't included in arvus. So Meir says, Dagam Avav, I'm not. So it can sign, therefore, that if we take those words literally, if we take the words of the Rush to the fullest extent, again, that a man is not Arev for a woman, then you shouldn't be able to be motzi up. Once you're Yotze de D'Oraisa, and she wasn't yet Yotze de D'Oraisa, she didn't have a Marav, so you shouldn't be able to be motzi, because now your Chiyuv is only a D'Rabban, and her Chiyuv is a D'Oraisa, and we're lacking the Arvus. We're lacking the Arvus that that completes the puzzle. However, others disagree with this. The Rabbi Kiva Eger, notably in his Hagos and Shulchan Aruch and in Tshuva, Rabbi Kiva Eger disagrees with the Dalgam Avav, and he says when the Rush says that women are narvus, he doesn't mean that. He doesn't mean that a man's not Ari for a woman. What he means is that a woman, to the extent to a mitzvah that she's not chayiv in, she doesn't have arvus for. If she's not chayiv in the mitzvah herself, she's not Ari for the next one either. So, or perhaps a man isn't Ari for a woman for a mitzvah that she's not chayiv in, even if she wants to do it. But if she's not chayiv in the mitzvah, then a man is not Ari for her. So, Lamashal, and this is not a detailed discussion for now, I hope it will be in the future, but just briefly, when it comes to Havdalah, although we paskin that women are chayiv in Havdalah as well, but there are two shitas, because it's questionable if Havdalah is learned out of Zachas Yom HaShabbos Lekacho as Kiddush is, or is it not? If it is, so it's just like Kiddush. But there's a shita that it's not. So according to that shita, a man wouldn't be able to be Motzi, a woman with Havdalah, if he was already Yotzei, because he's Chayiv in Havdalah, but she's not Chayiv. So if she's not Chayiv, he couldn't be Motzi her. So we'll leave the details there for now, Bez Hashem, but the same thing like Lulav and Esrog. A woman wants to make a bracha on Lulav and Esrog. She's allowed to, but she's definitely not chayiv. It's a mitzvah seishes man groma. So if she doesn't know the bracha, a man can't make the bracha for her. If another man wants to be Yotzi Levanesrik, he doesn't know the bracha. So I was Yotzi already, but I could say the bracha for him. I could say the bracha because I'm already for him. He has a mitzvah to Levanesrik, so he's supposed to make a bracha on it. So I could say the bracha for him, and he could answer Amen and shake the Levanesrik. But if a woman wants to shake the Lulav Esrog, I can't make the bracha. But if I'm making the bracha for myself and she has her own Lulav Esrog, yeah, I could be motzi her, she'll make a kona. But if I already did the mitzvah, I'm not doing it now, and she's holding Lulav Esrog, I can't make the bracha for her because that's what we say. I don't have arvus for a woman for a mitzvah that she's not chayiv in. But a mitzvah that a woman's chayiv in? So a man, the Rush never meant to say a man's not arv. Of course, a man's arv. For a woman, Yatzam Motzi applies between a man and his woman as well, as long as she's chayiv in the mitzvah. So when it comes to the mitzvah of Kiddush, that a woman's chayiv equally to a man, a fact that he can be Motzi her, even if he's Yotzi already. So even if a man made Kiddush mamish, he finished Kiddush, and he comes home, whatever, for some reason he made Kiddush elsewhere, or his wife didn't hear Kiddush, and then she comes, and he can repeat Kiddush for her. Like I said, it's better if a person could do it themselves, they should do it themselves, but he could repeat it. Or, a woman, I used to have this sometimes, and when we lived in Chicago, years back, there was a certain female guest who would come, and sometimes she would arrive late. And, it was understood that we wouldn't wait for her, wouldn't even necessarily know if she's coming any particular week or not. So she would sometimes walk in Friday night after the Suda began. So when she wasn't comfortable or capable of making Kiddush, so I'd make Kiddush for her, make Kiddush over again. So certainly if you would just Yotzi the Daraisa, and even though you're only chayiv the Rabban and your wife's chayiv the Daraisa, says Rabbi Kiveger makes no difference. And the Mishnah Berurah paskins like this Rabbi Kiveger, and Mishnah Berurah is talking about even another nafkamina, because there's another nafkamina that emerges, and that is, can a woman be motzi a man? Could a woman make kiddush to be motzi a man? So if a woman's not, if there would be no arvis altogether, so then if there's no arvis in a woman and a man, then she couldn't be motzi a man, certainly if she was yotzi already. At least that. And the Mishnah Berurah paskins that, like the Rabbi Kiveger, that there is arvis between men and women for mitzvahs that they're on the same footing, and therefore a woman can always be motzi a man with kiddush, and certainly a man who is davened already could be motzi his wife even if she didn't daven. And again, quoting the Sefer Hilchos Shabbos b'Shabbos, he mentions that he brings down that many achronim say like this, like Rabbi Kiveger, and the fact that he brings that from poskim and say that is the minig lamaisa, that a man could be motzi his wife even if he was yotzi the rice and she wasn't, and also in the Sefer Kavitz Halachas from Shmuel Kamenetsky paskins that way as well. Now, just getting back to the point about a woman being motzi a man, lamaisa the Mishnah Berurah does mention, although it works, but it's not a lechatchila thing to do. The lashon of the Mishnah Berurah in Reish Ayin Aleph Sifka and Dal is mikol makom yesh lahach melechatchila shelo totzi isha anashim she'einu mibnei beisa dezila milsa. It's considered inappropriate or almost like a little shameful for a man that he needs. The Gemara says it's shameful for a man that he has to have a woman be motzi him and whether it's halal or in this case kiddush or whatever it is. So it's not a lechatchila thing to do. Now the Mishnah Berurah's lashon interesting is shelo totzi isha anashim she'einu mibnei beisa. People from, let's say, their guests, for example. And it sounds like from the Mishnah Berurah that if it's just the immediate family, that it is lechatchila. I believe that the Gemara that's discussing this Indian that it's considered like a greyas, it's considered a bezayin or a busha for a man to have to need to be yotzi with his wife, is talking about even, as I said, his wife, even bias. Now the Mishnah Berurah quotes two Marabakomas on this, the Eliyahu Rabbah and the Derech HaChaim. I couldn't locate the Eliyahu Rabbah today when I was trying to be Mavarit, but I did locate the Derech HaChaim, and the Derech HaChaim, it does not say those words. She'ein Mnei Beis. The Derech HaChaim just says that Mikol Mokem Mishlahach Melechatchila, I don't remember if it's exact lashon, but he says Lo Totzi Anashim, Lo Totzi Isha Anashim, the Zila Milsi. He says Zila Milsi. It does not say Anashim She'ein Mnei Beisa. So now maybe those words appear in the Eliyahu Rabbah. I didn't see, or perhaps the Mishnah Berurah did that. I don't know. It's still interesting to see, but as I said, I couldn't locate the Eliyahu Rabbah. I couldn't find the Sefer Eliyahu Rabbah today to check it out. Okay, but I'll come upon him. That's not the way of doing. Certainly, if it's people from a different household are there. Okay, now, just see the time, please. Okay, within this discussion of something being motzi someone else, even if he's not being yotzi, if he's yotzi already, whatever. What about the following case? Let's say we know we discussed in some of our shiurim going back a few weeks, and when we talked about Tosefos Shabbos and the like, and we know that one can accept taking Shabbos from Plag HaMincha, and that he can make Kiddush after taking Shabbos, and he can make Kiddush, and it's first in Shulchan Aruch that way, that a person could do that. So let's say a person was Makabel Shabbos, and he wants to make Kiddush, but the question is, could somebody else who has not yet taken in Shabbos be motzi him? It's before nighttime, so you don't have to start Shabbos yet. Could a person who was not yet been Makabel Shabbos be motzi someone else who was Makabel Shabbos with Kiddush? And this shaila comes up in people who go to nursing homes or hospitals, whatever, to make Kiddush there for some of the residents or the patients, where they'll be going at times, especially in the summer months, they may be going earlier, going after Plag HaMincha, and where the nursing home, for example, is serving the Suda before night, and so the residents of Makabel Shabbos, so they have a rabbi or someone who is in the role of a rabbi, in the role of the spiritual guide, and he makes Kiddush for them. But he may want to go home then, and maybe he wants to drive home, or whatever it is, or maybe he wants to get home and he's not ready to start Shabbos yet. Could he make Kiddush and be motzi them? So Reb Kiva Eger declares the shaila, and Siman Reish Samach Zayin, Reb Kiva Eger declares the shaila, and it's mesuvik. What's his suffix? Because even though we said you don't have to be Yotzi Kiddush right now to be motzi someone else, that's for sure. In the middle of Shabbos, you can Kiddush even though you're not being Yotzi. For example, we'll talk about later, B'Shem, the Kiddush has to be Makam Suda. I could not even be eating now. I'm not eating anything. But you're going to eat, so I'll make Kiddush for you, and you'll have a Suda. For you, it's Makam Suda. That's fine. Or we said a person, I was Yotzi already Kiddush, I can Motzi. So what's the Shaila here? The Shaila here is, maybe it's like I'm not even Chayiv. If it's not Shabbos yet, if I haven't yet been Makabel Shabbos, so maybe it's like I'm not even Chayiv in the mitzvah. And his Medama, he compares it to the case of a person who lives in a walled city, who has a mitzvah to learn the Megillas Esther on the 15th of Adar, that it says he should not be motzi a person, even if he makes a visit, then he goes over during the day on the 14th to the non-walled city, where the people are chayiv and Megillah right down on that day. So it says he should not be the one to be motzi people with the Megillah, because he's not chayiv b'davar. He's chayiv tomorrow. He's a yid who's chayiv a Megillah, but not today. So he's not a bar chiyuva for the mitzvah of Yudalit. So it says Mekivega could be clear. I'm not a bar chiyuva for the mitzvah of Kiddush on Friday. It's Friday. It's not Shabbos. For you, it's Shabbos. For me, it's Friday. So I'm not chayiv in Kiddush on Friday. Just like he's not chayiv in Megillah on the 14th of Adar because he lives in a walled city. So that's Mekivega Shaila. Or do we say no? That perhaps it's different than there where there's it's different because I could be Makabel Shabbos. I could start Shabbos now also if I want. The guy on the 14th, maybe he could move, but it could be even too late to move, but in the middle of the day. But I certainly could be Makabel Shabbos if I want, so maybe that's good enough. So Kivega is a suffix, he leaves as a suffix, and a number of Achronim discuss this. So Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach also leaves it as a suffix Lamaisa. It's in a tshuva in the Mincha Shlomo in Siman Gimel. It's also brought in the Shmir Shabbos Hilchos in Perek Nun Aleph, and Perek Nun Aleph Sif Yud Ches, and in the notes there. So he recommends one should not do this except b'Shas Chak. Shas Chak, for whatever reason, a person could do it, but otherwise he recommends not making Kiddush before your Makabel Shabbos. And that's the psak of Rav Shmuel Kametsky as well. In the Sefer Kovitz Halachas, in Perek Tes Halacha Yud, he uses the Lashon Shas HaChagodol. Unless it's Shas HaChagodol, one shouldn't do it that way. Okay. Let's see, it's time to begin another topic for this. No, I think not. Okay, so I think we'll hold it here for now. And as Hashem, look forward to continuing on this topic as Hashem next week. Thank you very much.